Today's lesson is on angle relationships, different pairs of angles and how they are related to each other. The first one is the adjacent angles. Adjacent, by definition, just means next to. You are sitting adjacent to another student if you are sitting next to another student. So angles that are adjacent are in the same plane and have a common vertex and a common side, but no common interior points. So we have two angles here, angle 1 and 2. They are next to each other, sharing this common side, sharing the vertex, but none of the interior points in angle 1 are in the interior of angle 2. So that is what this definition means. They're on the same flat surface. They have a common vertex, here it's W, a common side, which is WY, but no common interior point. So a simpler way to say it is they are two angles that are right next to each other, sharing a side. We call them adjacent. Know that term. It's in yellow. Yellow highlighted words are the words you need to know. A second type of angle pair are the vertical angles. Vertical angles are two non-adjacent, so they're not side by side, they're not sharing a side, but they are formed by two intersecting lines. So think about what an intersecting line is. Two lines that crisscross each other. So it'd be like making an X. When you make an X, you form four different angles here. The ones that are not next to each other. So let's start with number 1. Is number 1 next to angle 3? Do they share a side? Yes, they do. We would call those adjacent, not vertical. Are angle 1 and 4 next to each other? Yes, they are. They are sharing this side. Therefore, we call them adjacent. They are not vertical. What about angles 1 and 2? Are they right next to each other sharing a side? No, they are not. They are non-adjacent angles formed by two intersecting lines. So angles 1 and angle 2 are what we call vertical angles, as are angle 3 and angle 4. So by crisscrossing two lines, we get two sets of vertical angles, 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Be able to identify which angles are vertical angles in a picture, in a diagram. Be able to draw vertical angles when you are asked to. Now, besides their position, they are also related another way. Vertical angles are always congruent to each other, and you can see that here. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. If I could cut this out with scissors and lay it on top of angle 2, they would match. Same thing with angle 3 and 4. If I could fold this screen, if I had drawn this on a piece of paper and I could fold it over, angle 3 would match with angle 4. They are congruent. A third pair of angles is the linear pair. Linear. What word do you see in this word linear? You should see the word line. A linear pair, when put together, form a line. Adjacent angles, there's that word again. What does that mean? It means they are side by side, right next to each other, sharing a side, whose non-common sides are opposite rays. So let's see what that looks like. So we have angle 5 and 6 right next to each other. They are sharing this side right here. That is the side they have in common. The non-common sides are here going to the left from the vertex, and here going to the right from the vertex. Those non-common sides are opposite rays. Remember, opposite rays have a common vertex and go in opposite directions, forming a straight line. So when you put linear pairs together, they make a line, hence the name linear pair. So if they make a line, what is the relationship in their measurements? By position, they're side by side, but how are their measurements related to each other? Do they look congruent? Does angle 5 look like it's the same size as angle 6? Hopefully you said no. So how are they related if they make a straight line? Well, a straight line has 180 degrees in it. So if we add these two angles together, we find their sum. They will add up to 180 degrees every time. Because they're making a straight line, they are making 180 degrees. Okay, so if you knew, for instance, that angle 5, let's say, is, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Let's say angle 5 is 100, is 135 degrees. What is angle 6? Okay, well, we know they have to add up to 180, so I'm going to say 135 plus x equals 180. And then I just do the algebra. I subtract the 135 from both sides. Cancel these out. X equals, can you do that in your head? Equals 45 degrees. So by knowing this relationship here, we can find unknown measures. So remember, in any of these relationships, you need to be able to use them to think through a problem, to find some unknown answer. Okay? Another situation is perpendicular lines. You should know that word, perpendicular. We've already learned it. Remember, its symbol looks like this, and it means that those two lines meet at a right angle. Okay, so if you had two lines going in all four directions, you would actually create 4 right angles here. Special intersecting lines that form right angles. Okay, so if you have lines and not just line segments, they're going to create 4 right angles. And again, here's the symbol. You need to know this symbol. You need to know what that means. Okay, supplementary. What does that mean? Anybody heard of that word before? It's in yellow. You need to know it. Supplementary angles are two angles whose measures have a sum of 180 degrees. They add up to 180. They can be side by side like adjacent angles like we just saw in the linear pair, or they can be two separate angles like so. Again, you must be able to take their measurements and add them up to 180, and that would be supplementary angles. Here they are as adjacent angles, something like this. Okay, but because it's 180 degrees, it's going to make a straight line. So here's the question. Is a linear pair supplementary angles? Linear pair, are they supplementary angles? Hopefully you said yes, because they both add up to 180 degrees. Complementary is another word you need to know. Complementary angles are two angles whose measures have a sum of 90 degrees. Okay, key number there is 90 degrees, so you need to know this term. Again, these angles can be two separate angles, like here. They just have to add up to 90. 35 plus 55 is 90 degrees. Or they can be adjacent angles. Because they add up to 90 degrees, you should be able to draw that box there. We're not going to assume they are 90 degrees. You have to either see that box or be told the number. But anytime you see that box and you see adjacent angles there, you know that they are complementary. Complementary is a right angle. Supplementary is 180 degrees. One way to keep them straight is if you give someone a compliment, it's a right thing to do. Okay, so a right thing, like a right angle, is a complement, like complementary. If that helps you keep it straight. Okay, so know these new definitions, be able to draw these different kinds of pairs of angles, and know their measurements.